fact. Police can actually monitor a criminal suspect's every movement right from the comfort of an office cubicle.
Earlier today, the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments in a case that will decide how and when police can use GPS tracking devices. And tonight, a stalking victim tells Fox 6 investigator Brian Polson how GPS saved her life.
Now, Brad and Ann, no one doubts the power of satellite technology to help police track the movements of a criminal suspect. But what if they wanted to track you for no reason at all? They can. Now, the nation's highest court is about to settle this epic battle between public safety and personal liberty. Every time you leave your house, every time you walk in a store, every time you buy groceries, fill up with gas or pay for parking, you leave behind what amounts to an electronic trail of breadcrumbs that can tell someone else every place you've been. It's the kind of technology you encounter every day without even thinking twice.
I was just like, how do you know all that stuff?
But Jamie Johnson knows better than anyone the sickening feeling that someone else is watching your every move.
When I would go out on dates, all my dates' cars were being damaged. And then they would be harassed after that.
View of her house compiled minute-by-minute logs of her daily activities and kept her in a constant state of fear.
He said, who knows, I may be hiding behind a bush and blow your head off.
In 1996, Michael Sveum was convicted of a Fox 6 show. He continued to harass Jamie from prison. When he got out 6 years later, the stalking continued. Only this time, he was more careful, calling from payphones and never identifying himself.
And I answered it would hang up.
Sveum had learned how to intimidate his victim without getting caught.
There wasn't a lot they could do until they did the GPS.
It was 2002, and a Madison police detective was about to make Wisconsin history by using a GPS tracking device to stalk the stalker. She attached a device similar to this one under Sveum's car. Weeks later, police retrieved the device and used the data it had recorded to place Sveum at the very payphones that were being used to harass Jamie. The GPS data helped put Sveum back in prison.
And potentially saved my life.
Since 2002, GPS tracking has become a popular tool for police to catch stalkers, armed robbers, serial burglars, even murderers. It is both more powerful and far cheaper than relying on old-fashioned surveillance.
The cost to taxpayers is immense.
Todd Morris is the CEO of Brickhouse Security, a national vendor of GPS systems with hundreds of law enforcement clients across the country.
If you have 3 undercover police cars with 2 detectives in each one, following one person for 24, 48 hours, the overtime costs and just the basic costs are astronomical.
In the Sveum case, police had to wait until they retrieved the device to find out where he'd been. Today's tracking devices offer real-time feedback that police can monitor from a computer screen or smartphone right in their squad car.
Devices are smaller, more efficient. They're smarter.
Jody Wormet is a special agent for the Wisconsin Division of Criminal Investigation, which supplies GPS devices to local police.
I'm reluctant to talk about how many we have, where they're located, or how often we use them, but I can say that we do have those assets located around the state.
When we asked Milwaukee police for records of how many GPS devices they have or how and when they use them, they denied our request, saying that disclosure would seriously handicap the department. And when we asked for an interview about GPS tracking, a department spokeswoman said, "We're going to take a pass."
I think police departments are reluctant to divulge that because they view it as it's to their advantage to not have transparency in these kinds of cases. They want to, sort of not let the criminals know what they can do.
But the more police use GPS, the more civil libertarians like Larry Dupuis shift in their seats.
The police could just go and, plop these GPS units on anybody's vehicle, on everybody in a neighborhood.
Dupuis is an attorney for the ACLU of Wisconsin, which believes police should be required to get a search warrant before placing a GPS device on a suspect's car.
Why does getting a warrant interfere with their ability to investigate crime? If they're investigating crime, it shouldn't.
Todd Morris argues there are times when police can't afford to wait.
As when you're standing there on the corner and you see illegal activity going on and you have 2 cars driving away, you don't have only have time to act.
In 2009, the Wisconsin Court of Appeals ruled that placing a GPS device on Michael Sviam's car did not constitute a search and therefore did not require a search warrant. The state Supreme Court later sidestepped the issue, giving police free rein to place a GPS device on anyone's car for virtually any reason, as long as the vehicle is in a public place.
They park in open spaces that are not considered private property, and we try and use that to our advantage.
Federal courts across the country have come to a similar conclusion, but not without reservations. One federal judge wrote that the potential for GPS to be used for mass surveillance makes, quote, the system depicted by George Orwell seem clumsy by comparison. And yet another judge lamented that 1984 is here at last.
It's astonishing, and that's what's in some ways so frightening. I mean, it's, you know, and the potential for abuse is incredible.
Last year, a federal court in Washington, D.C. ruled against police, saying that detectives' use of GPS to track a pair of drug dealers was a search. And earlier this year, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to take the case, setting the stage for one of the most important Fourth Amendment showdowns in generations.
It's a big one because I think it's really going to redefine search and seizure.
And that could have a major impact on how police use technology to catch criminals like Michael Sviam.
It proved what he was doing. I think that the ability for law enforcement to use that in any suspected criminal activity is very important.
Assuming they go and get a warrant, I have no objection to the police using GPS units. They should have to get a warrant.
During oral arguments this morning, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer told a government lawyer, if you win this case, there is nothing to prevent the police from monitoring 24 hours a day the public movement of every citizen of the United States. The Department of Justice attorney replied that Congress or state legislatures should be the ones to place limits on GPS, not the courts. Later, Justice Sonia Sotomayor asked how many GPS devices are in use by law enforcement today. The government's lawyer said he could only speak for federal agencies, but said it's in the, quote, low thousands. He said it's not a massive universal investigative technique, at least not yet.
Well, you couldn't get that question answered. I mean, they're reluctant to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to the Supreme Court case, when do you think, any idea when we might hear or see a ruling?
In this particular case, and in a lot of cases like this, it usually takes the High Court a couple of months, 2 to 4 months probably, after oral arguments to issue an opinion, so probably not until sometime this winter. In the meantime, though, you can read a full transcript of today's arguments on the Supreme Court website, and we have a link at fox6now.com.
Okay.